Hey, did anyone else watch the Suicide Squad 2 trailer and think, I need a shark god with a Dad-Bod in my life? No? Just me? Hiya folks, my name is Adam and I like to make tiny nerdy things, and today I made a tiny king shark. Now to make your own Salakimorpha deity, you'll need a few ingredients: a stand, some wire, some foil, and some clay. As with all superheroes, King Shark is in great shape. However, his shape tends to be round, so we're gonna need a pretty sturdy armature to build on top of. My normal thin gauge wire won't cut it, so I'll wind a couple lengths together to get a nice strong helix strand of aluminum DNA, and then I can start bulking it out with copious amounts of foil. The idea here is that using foil will reduce the cost of clay, but I think I ended up using so much foil that it offset any savings anyways. The tape will help hold it in place so it doesn't come undone while baking. Then I'm ready to add the clay. Now he's going to be predominantly made of Super Sculpey, since I find it's great for making larger figures, but I'll make his fingers, fins, and shorts out of cosclay since it's quite a bit more flexible. I'm also going to add a very thin layer of cosclay over the armature before adding a base layer of Sculpey. The reason for this is that cosclay is very sticky and sticks to the metal very easily, and then the Super Sculpey can easily be added on top. Then I'm ready to start bulking him up, starting with his jovial beer belly, his head, and his chest. Now at this point I'm only really focused on getting the general shape, as I'll be constantly adding and removing until I'm happy with how everything looks. And of course, as with every sculpture I do, it's important to spend ample time perfecting the gluteus maximus. Sure, he'll be wearing shorts and you won't see any of this, but aren't you glad I showed you the care and love that goes into it anyways? His feet are fun, and since they're as simple as feet get, a couple of balls get smooshed onto the stumps of his legs, and then I'll generally rough out the shape of a toe trifecta, leaving the webbing between them. They don't even have that much texture, and the concept art I'm working off of doesn't even have any talons or toenails to worry about. Now I don't want you to worry too much about this first attempt at a mouth. I might have been channeling my inner Barney and accidentally made him a tad too lovable. He looks like he just told a terrible joke and he's waiting for you to respond. I hadn't quite grasped what was wrong, and I thought maybe if I started adding the details, it would make more sense. Now, when that failed, What is that? Fortunately, nothing is set in stone, so I can start adding to the structure of the face, making him a bit more menacing. I'll add some sharper ocular ridges and make the tip of his nose a bit more pronounced, so he's got less of a missile shape and a bit more of a shark shape. Then I'll get frustrated and move on to something else. Namely, I'll start adding in the arms by drilling a couple of holes and attaching some more wire. Then these will get covered in clay and blended into the body, and then I can add some of what I like to call the
Canadian lumberjack muscle.
This is that muscle that you find lying under layers of functional fat.
Dude, we've been through this, okay? I'm cultivating mass. Stop saying that.
It's not as pronounced as what you'll see on Venice Beach, but then when Buddy hoists a 600-kilogram log onto his shoulder and walks out of the forest, you can appreciate that it's probably still pretty strong. Honestly, I think that's why I love this version of King Shark so much. He's not a ridiculously jacked dude with a shark's head, so much as he's just kind of an awkward-looking mix between a middle-aged dude and a great white shark. After having refined the shape of the head, I'm going to try and make the mouth again. Now the idea here is that I'm going to do what I would normally do in making a shark, and I'm just going to cut a straight line across. Oddly enough, this worked wonders, and I can get to adding the teeth in. Now the teeth are tiny triangles of clay that I baked ahead of time, so that I can just stick them in place with a little bacon bond. And a couple wormy dealies will thicken up his jowls, and I can get started on the finer details. My ball stylus will work perfect for poking a couple eye sockets, then I can add some pre-baked clay that will act as his eyeballs, and I can build up his brow ridge before poking some tiny holes for his nostrils. And then I'm on to my favorite part, which is adding rolls and textures. The back end of my tool and a silicone shaper work wonders for adding the bigger rolls, while the finger pads of a blue nitrile glove work perfectly for adding that trademark sharkskin texture. I can cut a series of grooves into his neck to give him some gills, and then I can add a blob of clay onto his back and smoosh it into the shape of a well-worn dorsal fin. I'll add a little bit of texture with my gloves and then give it a scarred and damaged look by scratching at it with a variety of tools. Then I can add the rest of his scars and rolls before finally, thankfully, putting him in the oven for his first bake. Doing this essentially saves my progress, meaning that I can work safely without disfiguring what I've done, but it also ensures that I have to move on and I don't get stuck worrying about perfecting anything in particular. In my mind, finished is better than perfect. To make his pants, I've rolled out a super thin strip of cosplay that I'll wrap around his entire torso like a towel. Then a couple more pieces along the inseam get blended into the main sheet, and then I can use a strand of woven fabric to give his shorts a bit of texture. Then using a hooked sculpting tool, I can pull the bottoms of the shorts off his legs and then give them a worn, torn off look by using tweezers to yank little bits of clay off the cuff. I'll also cut little holes and tears into the legs using my scalpel before adding the zipper in the front and the tiny belt loops all the way around. Before I add his hands, I wanted to give him a hand to hold on to. Kind of. More specifically, I want to give him an arm to hold on to. King Shark's big characteristics are that he's the son of a shark god, he's half man, half shark, and he likes eating people. The god shark thing is pretty abstract, but I think I nailed the half shark, half man thing. So all I need to do is give him a little snack in the form of a dismembered arm, and I think we've got all our bases covered. As for the king's arms, they're pretty much normal arms minus a digit plus a bunch of webbing. Now, bear with me as I'm going to get pretty technical here, but the best way that I know to make these hands is to roll out a blob of clay and then cut little bits out, then roll little wormy dealy fingies before adding even littler, wormier dealies, and then some extra little blobs on top of those. Then I'll use a little bit of bacon bond on the tip of the arm, and then jam it all up onto that stub. I left his forearm small before baking it so that I could add lots of clay over top to help blend it in with the arm. Once that's finished, I'll use the dismembered hand to shape his grip into the right shape. Although, would it be a dismembered hand? I mean, we have the hand, we don't have the body, so I guess it's more a disembodied hand? At any rate, to make painting easier, I'll keep the disembodied hand separate and glue it in place at the end. So all it's left to do is add a few more of the details between his forearm and his upper arm, and then give him his left hand. Now obviously, he has to be waving that hand since that's easily the best part of the entire trailer for me. Apart from, you know, where he rips that dude in half. But I thought that this would make for a slightly more approachable sculpture. And once I baked everything and locked it in place, I want to add a final layer of texture, so I'm going to take out my trusty hands of blue and use them to dab a thin layer of bacon bond over the entire sculpture. When it cures in the oven, it'll leave a really great shark skin texture everywhere, and it takes a light dry brush really well.
Hello.
After the final bake, I added a bit of thickness to the neck, squared the jawline, and fixed the shape of the nostrils. Then it was on to painting, and today I'm turning to the airbrush. This is my little anti-cancer airbrush booth, which I will put a link to in the description below. Airbrushing has always given me the heebie-jeebies since turning a thick, quick-drying liquid into an aerosol and then spraying it all willy-nilly around your lungs makes me more than a little anxious. So having something like a spray booth is, I think, absolutely necessary. And hey, you know what else is necessary? Your support. So if you'd like this video, then hit that like button, leave me a comment, and share it with your friends. Or if you want to go that one step further, consider checking out my Patreon, where as little as £1 a month can go towards supporting the creation of tiny nerdy things. And with that in mind, I'd like to take a second to thank my newest patrons, Margaret Kempenar, Emily G, Varun Nasarasa, Deborah Zander, Just Josh, Kietel Otteson, Damo El Diablo, Brandon, Teresa Harris, Liam Duke, Emily M, Gordon Douglas, Salt Minion, Anna Smith, Gumi, Becca, and Hannah Congrave. You are the wind beneath my wings, and it is only through the support of lovely people like these that I am able to continue to make tiny nerdy things every week for your visual and auditory consumption. Back to the task at hand, I've done my white belly into off-white blending into the dark blue tones before highlighting with the barest mouse's sneeze worth of gunmetal to give a barely perceptible metallic sheen to his skin. Then I'll do some final blending with a touch of white to help transition the colors, as well as highlight some of the ridges before adding some vibrant scarring in pink. Now this color scheme isn't direct from the trailer. Instead, while searching for photos, I found an amazing concept of King Shark done by MLW Creative, which I'll link below so you can check it out. I just love the contrast in colors, especially with the bright scarring against the dark skin. While I've got the airbrush out, I figured I may as well paint the arm too, since it'll be plenty easy to add a camo pattern to the jacket just using the brush. Now back to the back, I wanted to give the scars a bit more definition and sharpen some of the edges, so I'll use a brighter pink in the center to draw some sharp lines down through the middle of each of the scars. Now, hindsight being what it is, I think it probably would have looked a little bit better having not used the airbrush, since the pink scar is a bit too soft around the edges. I'll use the barest dusting of just off-white white to dry brush over all the sharp edges and really make use of that bacon bond texturing. It's barely noticeable, but I think it makes a world of difference when you start to take a really close look. Finally, I'll paint the teeth a tooth white, then give the king a couple of pitch black eyes. For a tiny bit of added shine, I'll also put a pin's worth of UV resin over the top of each of them. Now, normally he's got those sweet plaid board shorts, but I don't want to paint plaid. I'm not in the mood for frustrated, ugly crying, and I've diverged enough from the concept art that I should be able to get away with some pretty sweet, light blue jean shorts. My only regret was not making them with short shorts. They do look a little bit too clean though, so I'm going to make use of my pastels to add a nice coating of dusty brown dust. Now normally I make a base for all my sculptures, but I've never made a character that is so perfectly balanced over its center of gravity, so I'm just going to cut the armature away and let him freestand.
Hello.
And then all that's left to do is glue the disembodied arm in place, and we're on to our glamour shots.